Good morning and welcome to First Congregational, United Church of Christ here in Ocala, Florida. We welcome you to our online worship services during the pandemic. We've been at this for quite a long time, but it's always good to welcome you back to be among us as we bind ourselves to the strong name of the Trinity. And you'll find that popping up at the end of the sermon today. I remind you that we are an open and affirming church, meaning that we welcome everyone into our life, our leadership, our fellowship, our love, our responsibilities, and our caring for each other. The scripture today is very brief. It is from the book of Genesis, and it reads like this: "And God created humanity. In the image of God, they were created, male and female." Well, the ancient story of Genesis is thought by some to be a book of proofs. It isn't. Instead, it's a book of explanations. Proofs versus explanations. Hardly the same thing. For example, a young man in his first year of college calls home to his parents to advise them that he had met the woman of his dreams and that they would be married within the next 15 or 20 minutes. A couple of weeks, maybe a year. Time didn't have a lot of meaning given their mental condition. Their mental condition. Great news, huh, Mom and Dad? But mainly he called his mother and father to secure an endorsement for his decisions and his condition. Over the next week, his mother developed a twitch, but for the moment, her best response was, "Well, is she nice?" His father's voice raised an octave and didn't come down for 3 months. What could his son possibly understand at the age of 18? What could he possibly understand about life, about marriage, about responsibilities? But what could he as a father say to his son that wouldn't make him sound like speaking down to a third grader? Still, the father carefully asked for explanations. But the son figured that what his father wanted was proofs. Proofs of his undying love, their hopes for the future, and that his fiancée, that she measured up to Boy Scout standards, trustworthy, loyal, helpful, thrifty, clean, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent, which, of course, she was. So the son launched into a series of proofs to that end. Add on beautiful to the Boy Scout motto, he would email a photograph of her. Add on to the Boy Scout motto, smart. She has a 3.765892145 grade point average. There you go. Thrifty. Wouldn't matter because her father owned half of Shelby County, Tennessee. Brave. Well, he couldn't comment on brave. They hadn't been together quite long enough to know if she were brave. Clean. Take a look at the photograph. Reverent. She went to Sunday school, and the two of them said a blessing every night in the college cafeteria. Clearly, she met Boy Scout standards. So, Mom, Dad, there's your proof. But Mom and Dad had no interest in proofs. Proofs don't matter much as far as relationships go. No, they encouraged explanations. Son, they said, carefully choosing their words, explain your decision. Sure, you love her, and Dad chimed in, and she's nice, and Mom continued, but explain how marriage fits into the picture. Well, unable to explain and thinking his proofs sufficient, the son concluded that they were just being belligerent. And so, in a huff, he hung up the phone with a bang. A week later, he and his fiancée broke up. And to comfort himself in his grief, he went out and bought a bass guitar. Explanations, proofs. Not the same thing. Genesis isn't a proof. But if Genesis is the best proof available regarding the origin and nature of the world, well, I shudder thinking about that. Genesis omits far too much science. It doesn't contain any science at all, actually. Obviously, because whoever wrote Genesis didn't know enough to write a treatise on science, but that's irrelevant, because Genesis isn't a proof in the first place. Genesis is a glorious, beautiful explanation of the writer's belief that God created the universe and that God cares deeply about creation, so deeply that God submits to being vulnerable to all that had been created. The author of Genesis testified within his belief that God created the earth and the seas and turned over responsibility for the earth and the seas to humanity. God created the animals and the fish and then called on humanity to name them, to have dominion over them, and to care for them. But the most vulnerable thing that God did was to create humanity, so the writer of Genesis believes, to create humanity in God's very own image, being in the image of God, creators. Simply stated, Genesis is an explanation that God is a creator of creators. Now, of course, you'll have no difficulty at all finding someone to scream murder at such an idea as that God is a creator of creators. Wrong, absolutely wrong. Genesis is a proof. And if you don't believe Genesis exactly as written, you will most certainly die of leprosy. So hold still, and I'll do you a favor and put you out of your misery. Or, creator of creators, how dare you say that humanity is on the same level as God? No, sir. God is the creator. Humanity is the created. And anything else is blasphemy. So if you do believe such heresies, you will most certainly die of leprosy. So hold still, and I'll do you a favor and put you out of your misery. You'll have no problem finding churches, pastors, biblical authorities who maintain such positions as those. Dial in channels 21 to 40 on any Sunday morning. Such television programs, as well as actual church that are communities of faith, see the Bible as proofs for whatever they require proofs. For them, proofs are all important. Explanations are watered down something or other. But our scriptures aren't a proof of much of anything. But I am entirely absorbed with its explanations of our relationships with God. What I am absorbed with is explanations of a relationship with God. Here's why. I want an explanation of why I am. Why do I exist? Why am I here? Am I, are you, are we an accident? I try not to spend too much time worrying about the length of my days. Wouldn't do much good if I did. If I did worry certainly never added any length to anybody's life, so claim our Christian scriptures. But I do want to know the purpose, the reason for my days. Am I simply a puppet bouncing along lines strung heavenward, a ventriloquist's dummy reciting lines from on high? Are my efforts to be a good and decent person worth the trouble? Should I accept the biting and deflated tongue-in-cheek irony that William Shakespeare placed in Hamlet's mouth? Hamlet's soliloquy flaunts sarcastically. It goes like this: "What a piece of work is man! How noble in reason! How infinite in faculties, in form and moving, how express and admirable! In action like an angel, in apprehension like a god. The beauty of the world, the paragon of animals, and yet, to me, what is this quintessence of dust? Man delights me not, nor woman either." Who in another of Shakespeare's moments, humanity struts and makes his way and her way across the stage, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. I want to know. I want to know, do I signify nothing? Of course, I don't want to signify nothing. I don't, but if I do, then is a reasonable conclusion. Why bother? Why worry? In the words of Alfred E. Newman, what, me worry? Or why wonder? Genesis turns me round right, offering an account of faith, not proof, but an explanation that does make sense. Genesis says to my reservations and doubts, Mac, God made you a creator. That's the big plan. Jupiter may get whacked by a comet. We may travel to the moon. We may split DNA. But comet strikes and moonwalks and diced DNA are small potatoes compared to our being creators. You want to know the purpose and the reason for our days, for the universe? Fine, there you go. This I offer you. Our purpose, our reason is to be creators. Well, that's how it rolls around for me. What's your thinking? Genesis seems these days to get a bad rap because it's entirely useless as a book of proofs, particularly in the face of science, because it can so easily, if wrongly, frame a hierarchy between men and women, which is how it's been historically used, or because it seems so naive and unsophisticated to our modern mind. But listen, until we recognize our freedom as autonomous members of our world and universe with the same responsibilities on a human level, you got to keep that one in there, with the same responsibilities on a human level for creativity and care that God engenders within and among us at every instant, until we accept ourselves as creators created by a creator of creators, we'll always wind up selling ourselves short and others short, which shortchanges our liberation, which reduces us to creatures of blind instinct and rote habit. It's a type of oppression, but Genesis won't permit it. Genesis says, folks, hitch up your pants, grab hold of your world, bask in it, feel it, want it, till it, work it, celebrate it, join it, and accept it all as God's gracious gift. The most vulnerable thing that a friend, lover, spouse, or parent could ever do. God turns creativity over into our hands. And you parents, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The most loving thing that you will ever do is to turn your children over to themselves, to teach them the tower of their own creativity, their own personhood, never a carbon copy of yourselves. Your task is to divest yourself so that they may invest themselves. And it must be said plainly, creating a creator is wrenching labor, vulnerable, painful, but absolutely the only way that you can love your children, the only way you can love anyone, to the reaches of God's love for you. It's difficult, terribly difficult, sometimes dangerous, sometimes tragic, yet wonderfully hopeful and triumphant as far as the reaches of light and as near as the heart's desires. You think God had it easy creating creators? You want to know how difficult? Well, keep reading Genesis, and you'll discover God's enduring the cost of creating a world of creators, and yet who lets loose a cat grin and dances a jig in those holy, liberating moments when we get a hold of who we are within this cosmos and within these, our bodies, within our minds, within these, our hearts of pure freedom. Our task is to take on God's creating us as creators, when we just as soon lay back and wallow in the mud, to call each other toward creativity when we'd prefer to catch the rays of our own self-satisfaction. Our task and calling demand summoning ourselves to creativity and to liberation, personally and as a church, when we'd prefer something less than the glory of our God-given humanity. It's tough, sure, it's tough. And testy. But I swear that even those tough and testy times signal the cusp of the very creativity of which we are heir apparent. You don't know how to be a creator of creators? How to accept its responsibilities? Do you want to become a creator? Do you? You want to come closer to your godliness by embracing your humanity? You want to liberate yourself from whatever fears would shackle you to your past? Do you want to shatter those private terrors that deny you the riches so graciously bestowed upon us all? Is that what you want? Good. Good for you. Good. Embrace it. Embrace it all. And want it so bad that you'll begin writing the genesis of your life, that you dare to become a creator of creators. And this we say, in the name of God, Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer. Amen.